Welcome to the Great Distraction.
Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of The Great Distraction. Today, the topic of discussion is casual sex, reality or myth. My name is Ben. With me today are my co-hosts Joe.
What up?
Thomas.
Hello.
And Glenn.
Hello.
If this is your first time listening, welcome. We thank you for joining us. The Great Distraction is a podcast that focuses on a vast and random range of topics, and we hope that each episode leaves you with, if nothing else, something to ponder. This topic, yes, casual sex. Does it actually exist?
Giggity, giggity.
Yeah, indeed. I don't remember who thought of this topic, but it's definitely something that everyone I know has considered. And usually, well, the way it worked out in my mind was usually it plays somewhere along the lines of the whole friends with benefits thing. But it can definitely be just somebody you randomly meet somewhere too, not necessarily the one night stand, but just anybody that you could really actually just have casual sex with no emotional attachments or any other complications with. And is it possible to do without truly keeping the emotions out of that? I mean, I'm not entirely convinced, but we're gonna get some different angles here and see who's got a different perspective on it. But for me personally, that means the friends with benefits thing. And do you guys agree with that, or do you feel it's more of a one night stand thing, or what?
You know, I think it really depends on the person. There are individuals that don't have a real defined emotional response to any situation they go through.
Like serial killers.
Pretty much.
They're probably really good partners in the casual sex world.
Right?
I bet they do have
total detachment.
Yeah, I bet they do have an emotional response to their serial killing, though.
I don't know.
They probably like it to some degree.
Okay,
right?
Okay. So is that one of those sexual things that they're? Because most serial killers have some sort of sexual pent up. It's a
some sort of sexual
desire,
discrepancy or deficiency
it
or
goes
something.
into a whole other ball of psyche.
Well, you just want to preserve their beauty, so obviously you kill
killing
them
and wrapping
so
them
they
in
never
plastic.
get old.
That's
It
right.
just makes sense.
It rubs the lotion on the skin for a reason. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so barring serial killers, maybe that was one of the first things I was wondering about this. Is it a certain type of person who can have this type of I still want to call it a connection with an individual, even if it's not an emotional one, right? I mean, if you're performing the act of coitus, then there has to be some sort of, not necessarily, there has to be some sort of a connection that you're creating with them, even if it isn't emotional.
Well,
so
sure, you have one of the largest data dumps that we can conceive. I mean, really, seriously, that's a lot of information going in a very short amount of time.
yeah,
It's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, I read this once Popular Science article where they tried to calculate, I think it was Popular Science, they tried to calculate how much in like gigabytes, terabytes of data was in one sperm in the DNA that you passed in.
What a bunch of nerds.
It was insane,
right?
dude.
While they were doing that, I was drinking with some hot girl at a bar.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Well, everyone who isn't a nerd is just trying to get that information passed into her. Yeah.
Jesus.
Wow. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was like gigs, or I don't know, maybe it was like a terabyte. I can't remember. If I could find the article,
I tell you what, if your sperm only holds a terabyte of information, your kids are in trouble.
Yeah, or what if you're only holding the gigs, man, and you're like, oh, dude, I fell short. I'm sorry. I should have upgraded to the larger model before I sent that out.
Oh, man.
Yeah, right? That's just some weird stuff. So assuming we could
Gives
find
new meaning to floppy disk.
That's afterwards, man. That's afterwards.
Limited storage space.
I'm sorry, baby. I can't hold that much information. Oh, man. I usually hold more. I'm sorry. Oh, that's terrible.
I'll get back in about 20 minutes with the hard drive.
All you have to do is take this little blue pill. Assuming, okay, so let's go down that path then. I mean, if there are people who, if it does require a certain type of person to have this interaction without a deep emotional connection, or the need for what's the term, like emotional compassion. No, there's another word I'm looking for here. Affection is what I'm looking for. So that's capable of having that type of interaction without the need for affection or emotional support or any of that type of stuff. are all people capable of that, or is it just these certain types of people?
Again, I think it's pretty case by case bias. You have some folks that get their emotional tactile connection from other partners, or different situations in their life, or if they have kids and they have that,
They have that fulfilled somewhere else, you're thinking.
Right.
And so they don't need it from the act of sex.
right.
Yes, yeah, because there's that's why I brought the serial killer thing. Not only just talk about wrapping people in plastic, but the emotional disconnect. Because I think I used to think that men were easier at emotional disconnect for sex than women are, but as I've gotten older, that's definitely not the truth.
It's definitely not true.
But certain people are that way. If you're fulfilled emotionally through other activities or your family or whatever, and maybe it's just your sex drive that's not satisfied, which is to me, of all the friends I've ever had that ever cheated on their spouses or whatever, that was exactly why they cheated. They had everything they needed at home, but they weren't having that physical release. That having sex is a huge physical, it's like anything that you do physical. It's award-winning, type of event to you in every aspect, sensory overload and everything else. So if you remove that from a relationship and then you don't have that, it's like having, a glass of water and go, oh, there's no more water in it. I need some water. Well, I still got the cup, but that doesn't fulfill you. It's just an empty cup.
Still feeling thirsty.
You call my junk a cup?
Thirsty.
Yeah.
Oh, is it half empty or half full?
Well, I put you in touch with a doctor that can help you out with that.
There's a shot for that.
Oh man,
Some sort of stem cell thing.
Oh god, I was thinking of the shot that the porn stars use. I was like, god, that's gross.
But that was kind of my general statement. Is I think that and when you're a teenager, you're like, oh, she'll have sex anyway. That's a slut. As somebody who has detached emotions from sex, they just want to have sex. But that's also But that's also a sex drive, a heightened sex drive. I know people in relationships that are just like, they'll screw anybody they can just because they just want to have sex.
Yeah.
They'll still go home and love somebody just as much as they want to. And I think that's a threshold we're starting to cross in society too, where, relationships are lasting shorter, marriages are lasting shorter periods of time. I think people are getting away from the traditional thing of like, well, I'm married to this person, they fulfill every one of my emotional needs. But they don't. Everybody I know that's in a long-term relationship at some point, they're either not really having sex very often or they're not doing something very often, so they're losing percentages of whatever fulfills them as a whole emotionally in a relationship. So casual sex, I have friends that will never get married, will never settle down. They're having the time of their life. They have their own homes, they have their own human being, and they enjoy the freedom of that. And when I was single more often, what I really liked about casual sex wasn't really the casual sex, it was the chase. I liked meeting new people. I liked going, man, that person really trips my trigger, or they really got my attention. I want to go after them. So it was this like very prime mode that I got into of like, I'm going to chase them down. I'm going to hunt them down. It was very primal, and I wanted to see how far I could get with them. I wasn't trying to, push any boundaries or do anything uncomfortable, but I liked that person. Could I get them? Could I obtain that?
You're like this bear with these claws, and she's
Right?
a fluffy white rabbit. Man.
I know. I'm
Swingers,
just trying not to make her bleed while I'm squeezing her.
Damn. That and the serial killer thing? I don't know about you, Thomas. I don't know what you're into.
Yep.
Watch out when you see all this saran wrap in his closet.
Hey, get out of my closet.
Now we know how Tom gets down, man. Playing off of what you were saying, I've more specifically, but I've also heard of it with a few friends of mine too. In the online dating world, I see these listings much more commonly than I ever did years ago when I was doing that when I was younger. For open relationships, people looking for who are married already, or the couple thing. They're looking for one extra person. I see that concept of having an open relationship way more common. It seems to be getting way more popular. So I think that's
more socially acceptable.
Yeah, that too.
Right.
And I see. I think it's going down just like you said there. People are together for many years, and they're like they'll say the same. They all say the same thing too. I love my wife, or I love my husband.
Yep.
And we both know what's going on here. And oftentimes, some of the dating websites will actually allow them to link their profile to their husband or wife's profile. So it's like, yeah, we're not kidding here. Nobody's cheating or whatever.
Yeah.
We know what's
Nothing's
up.
being hidden.
And they always ask looking for. If I try to remember how they say it, ethically polyamorous people. So they're looking for people who know how to be polyamorous, because the thing is too is when you decide to do the open relationship thing, one of the biggest concerns I have is, okay, we are two people sleeping with each other. The minute we also involve two more people, everybody they're sleeping with is now skyrockets our risk for STDs, diseases, and who knows what else, right? Also for getting somebody impregnation, right?
Or getting shot.
Or yeah, when the deal goes south. Again with the killing with this guy.
I know. Sex and death are really very closely tied together.
But it must be. So I mean, you see him. You increase your risk for everything as this fans out. So I think that's why a lot of these people are asking for somebody who knows how to be ethically polyamorous by, you're getting regularly tested. You're testing the people that you're with. You're telling each person, hey, I know you have somebody now, we're together, but I also have somebody already. And I just want you to know about that person, and we're only these two. And, that's divulging that information so that a person can identify the risk factor for what they're getting themselves involved in, I think is what they mean by that ethical polyamority, however you say that, polyamory.
I think that also is to put all the cards on the table, saying like these two people are, the primary relationship and you're going to be on the side kind of thing, so that nobody gets feelings where feelings shouldn't be. Yeah. In a way.
So what you're getting into too. Like, hey, this is the established what's going on here. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've seen that happen, and I've had friends that have had, married. I'll without naming names. I have friends who are married.
I know this guy. Was it you, Thomas?
Nope, not me at all. But back east, and they have tried this multiple times, and multiple times it's gone bad.
Yeah.
And one time I was sort of around when it was going on, and the wife is bisexual, and they decided they wanted us. They've been married 10 years, whatever, and they said, "Oh, well, let's throw some excitement." We had this friend. I'm just saying and speaking of them,
I got you.
They had this friend that they were both kind of attracted to, that they hung out with, and so they talked about it, and then they agreed, that we're going to talk to this person, say we're interested in this, and see if they're willing to do this. And they talked to the other girl, and she agreed. And so they started, fooling around, all three of them. Well, what went sour is what seems to always go sour is the girl started showing up when the wife was gone.
Yeah.
And the husband and her were sleeping together. Then the wife found out that he was sleeping with her while she wasn't there, and she got all mad about it and bent out of shape. And I think that's almost what happens every single time.
So let me add to that. One of the other things that I've seen with the careful, man. One of the other things I've seen with the polyamorous seeking couples that I've read about too is many of them. Many of them are looking not for the. There's a difference between the threesome thing and the separate relationship within the open relationship. Yeah. So I think that many of them had figured out maybe it's best if we don't see the other person with somebody else. You have your thing, you go out, you do your stuff, and maybe
do what you're going to do, but I don't want to see it.
Yeah, maybe you don't come home tonight or whatever. Maybe I'm not coming home tonight, but we're not doing this in front of each other.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I don't want to keep this like male centric, even though we're all guys, but I have heard from a couple of guys who have been in relationships like that and decided, same situation. The girl was curious, or maybe she was just okay with letting her guy cheat or whatever. And I think of the 2 or 3 people that have told me about this, who have been in this personal experience, they've told me that, the minute your significant other sees you with another person,
it's over.
It changes everything. It doesn't work.
Yep.
It doesn't work for everybody. It does.
Yep.
I'm sure there are people who it would work. It might work for, but it changes the way you see this person that you were maybe in love with for a couple of years, maybe longer. Yeah. All of a sudden, you've never seen this side of them before.
Yeah, it all goes south. Years ago, I dated this girl. And I was attracted to her. Obviously, we were dating and having fun and everything. And all of a sudden, she introduced me to her friend. And I was like, whoa. And there was no way for me to hide the fact that I was like, this girl, I was into this girl.
Then you get that question later at night, do you think she's hot?
Oh, of course, absolutely. And I did what every good guy does. Oh, no, she's ugly.
You're way prettier.
I lied through my teeth as much as I could to keep the arguments at a minimum. Yep. But I found out as we started talking, she kind of led to the conversation of that she was bi-curious. And I was like, okay, so I kind of just let her talk. This is one of those situations where if you're a guy, just say very little.
Yeah.
Don't throw in any ideas or fantasies you've had. All of a sudden there's a small opening in the door.
They're leading you, right?
Don't kick the door open because it might be a door to hell. And so, she, as weeks go by, she kind of mentions it a couple times and stuff, and I'm like trying to be real cool about this and like, this, I can see this going bad. She already knows I'm attracted to her. This probably isn't good, whatever. So for my birthday, all of a sudden I come home and her friend's there in lingerie.
Oh no!
And I was like, wow, that was a good day already, And she says, oh, what's your birthday present? I said, what is my birthday present? I said, and I was like, at this point, you're like, you can't make a move without feeling like you're going to get, executed,
Something bad is just...
And I said, well, what's my? She's like, oh, well, she's going to dance for you because I know that you liked her. And I was just thinking, man, this is a bad idea.
A trap, dude.
A total trap. And so I just kind of, and I said no. And that offended both of them.
That's not the right answer.
It's not the right answer at all. And then they kind of got offended. And as they were getting offended, I was like, well, I just don't want this. And I'm trying to like backtrack at this point because I'm still wanting this to happen. And I was like, I said, well, I don't, I'm not trying to go after you. I'm not interested in you. I think you're pretty, that's kind of where I draw the line. I said, you got whatever you guys have going on. That's on your side. I'm not pushing for anything to happen. Yeah. And they were like, no, we're both okay with this. And in my mind, I'm going, that's BS. There's no way.
You tried to introduce logic into the situation.
Like, a guy can never introduce logic into the situation. So anyway, so I said, whatever. So I let her do it. So she like does this dance and she's all on me and stuff. And I'm just thinking, oh God, I'm trying real hard to just like deal with this and like, yeah, that's great. Well, I find out the girl, the other girl, not my girlfriend, a couple weeks later decides to corner me when I'm by myself and makes a couple comments towards the thing of like, well, she's into me as well. And I was like, man, this is just this is getting weirder by the minute. Yeah. And so a couple weeks later, I have a conversation with my girlfriend at the time, and she pulls out this routine of like, well, I would be okay with this. And I'm still doubting everybody's validity here because I know this is going to be bad. And at this point, I was just like, I don't even know what to say. You get trapped. I think a lot of people, and the reason I'm bringing this up, I think a lot of people, and I know I've talked to other friends about this, have gotten in sort of these situations and felt like they were trapped. Mm-hmm. Because once you open this Pandora's box, there's no way to get out of it unscathed.
Without hurting somebody.
Somebody's going to get hurt. And so I was just like, I didn't know what to do. I was kind of like, I just kind of like tried to push it off. So I kind of separated myself from both of them a little bit, put a little bit of distance between us to try to, wind things down a little bit because I just knew this would not go over well. Mm-hmm. And I did that very well for a little while. A couple months go by. She doesn't let up on it. I go home one day and both of them are there hanging out in the front room wearing almost nothing.
Oh, boy.
Because they're friends. Because girls are friends. When girls are friends, they can run around naked. We can't hang out and be naked, Ben. That's not going to work.
That always
but
weirded
girls
me out, man.
can do this, and whatever. So they start like dancing around me and doing, and I'm like, I know exactly where this is going. So at this point, I was just like, you know what? You guys have dug this hole.
Yeah.
Let's just all jump in. Screw it. So I just went ahead and did it. I just like, all right. It went so bad from that moment forward that the relationship was complete disaster and fell apart within months.
Yep.
And all I could think was like, well, you made this happen. So
and they obviously weren't going to let it up. So
they weren't going to let it up.
There's the trap right there.
But I think that's a trap, and I think there's a lot of people get in these weird situations. Like I said before, I've had friends tell me similar stories about things, and somebody going, "Oh, well, I'm bi-curious, or I'm this or that," and I'm like, I don't feel like there's any way in a relationship to add another person in without someone getting hurt. Either the new person that comes in, like you said before, the significant
the insignificant other.
Who is now the insignificant other.
The significant other sees you with another person and everything changes. It's just like when, I've had other friends that had open relationships, and when I asked them about their open relationship rules, I said, you got to have some sort of rules in this, right? Yeah. And one of my buddies was like, yeah, our rule is we don't interact any of those activities into our personal relationship.
Yep.
If you're on a date with somebody, it's totally separate. And they had a code worked out where they would say whatever their code was, and maybe it was a text message or whatever, and then they were like, okay, we're cool. I'm not going to bother you. I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah.
But they did not see each other together or any sort of intermingling together.
I think it's so important in that situation to have boundaries. And
Absolutely.
That's really what it's all about. And that has to be predetermined, discussed on both sides, and both people have to be honest about it and come to it honestly and open. And oftentimes it doesn't happen. It's hard for people to be honest with themselves, let alone honest with somebody else. So oftentimes you get in that situation and it backfires. Yeah.
I think too, a lot of times, if it's the first time, you don't necessarily know all of the rules that you should have thought of in the first place.
Right.
And then you get such a bad situation out of it that you're like, dude, I'm never doing that again. Or it just kills the concept henceforth.
Well, they do write books about this. One that I know is called The Ethical Slut, about
that's right. You
polyamorous
told me about that
relationships,
years
yeah.
ago. Wow, I never did read that book. I kind of feel like it's sometimes it's along the similar lines of people who have a really bad trip for their first psychedelic trip, right? And then never want to try it again. I mean, they're just like, they're done.
Got to
like,
get back on that horse.
Yeah, it's just like riding a bike. You fall off your bicycle the first time and scrape your legs. So maybe it depends on how bad you want to do it, though, right? I mean, with something like
Right.
this, I mean, if you really want to figure out how to make the casual sex thing or the menage a trois, it depends on what you're going for there or whatever, work, you gotta, it takes practice. I mean, how many relationships did you go through, before you
Man.
figured out how to be in a long-term relationship? I mean, what's the same thing? You just got to figure out
I think
how
we're still
to,
going through those.
Yeah, right. I
Every
guess
one of them.
the problem is we change as often as the dang relationship changes, and then
Yeah.
so you never really get done.
It takes a lot of honesty too.
Yeah.
I've also been in some relationships where I was perfectly honest about what I wanted and was after, and I thought that my partner was honest as well. Turns out when the time came, she wasn't,
Yeah.
and it blew up, and and the whole situation exploded.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you weren't honest with me, you misled me, and me acting on what I thought we had agreed upon caused problems in the relationship. And that's when I learned the term "buy to get a guy." I had never heard that before,
Absolutely.
but it's an actual thing.
Buy to get a guy.
Yeah.
Is
And
that what-
I think a lot of girls
Shocking.
too. Well, I think a lot of, and I think in your situation, because I remember when this all happened.
Yeah.
I think a lot of girls get in this mode where they think, well, maybe I'm not satisfying this person, or maybe they like this other type of girl or this person or whatever, and so they, and that was the excuse that was used for me. Oh, I just want to see you happy. I just want to do something to make you happy. Well, introducing another person isn't going to help anybody, But being honest from the beginning. If you're in a situation and you're trying to do that and you're not honest with it, it's always going to backfire.
Right. Yeah. Well, in my case, in that particular instance, I was told that she had gotten, some feelings beyond when we first discussed it, and she was afraid that introducing another girl into the situation might, open the door between her and I. Again, I don't really buy it. I think that she just wasn't completely honest with herself or with me, and so it caused problems.
Yeah, and it definitely goes back to being honest with
Right,
yourself, because
totally.
that's a huge door to open if you're
Totally.
not part of it. And the casual sex thing, when I was single more often, I guess, for me in that mode, and like I said, I have lots of friends in this mode too that I talk to that, if they're single and they're just kind of casually dating, they don't necessarily want to be in a long-term relationship. As long as you're honest, just like Joe was saying earlier about just being honest with somebody. The problem is it seems like there's never two people always being honest at the same time.
There isn't, because I've tried that route too. Like right off the bat, I'm not looking to get married. I don't want to move in. Whatever. I've just laid down.
Oh,
exactly,
that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay for like the first 6 months, and all of a sudden, wait, the situation. No, it didn't change on my end. If it had changed, I would have told you. Oh, wait, you're no longer okay with it. Okay, so now we're going down this path. And basically one side just wants to get back to the way it was, and the other side is just like, no, why don't you want to do it my way now? And I'm like, oh boy.
Well, and then I think another thing too is if you're dating somebody, if you're truly casually dating somebody, you're probably dating more than one person, so you're not spending a lot of time with an individual.
That's how I look at it. But I swear, when I get in those situations, it always seems like one of them is surprised. Like, wait, you're dating other people? We're dating, like not a monotonous.
I think
Not a monogamistic
blah, blah,
relationship.
blah, blah. We're just
here.
screwing words today like crazy.
I think there's definitely some conversations that everybody, two people need to have before you get to that level of exclusivity.
Yep.
And in my book, if those conversations had not been had and y'all haven't found an agreement and common ground, then you don't need to be inviting expectations into it too
Complicate
early
it.
in the relationship, because that's the wrong way to do it.
Yep.
It really is, and you have to flat out say, yes, I want this to be exclusive. This is what I want. You are this to me. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do we go on from here?
And that works provided that your partner, because it really isn't. It matters if your partner actually knows what they want and can give you that answer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the tricky part. Is there's so many, like
And
you've said.
I've had a lot of people just glance over those things too, and
Yeah.
it's like, well, wait a minute, pump the brakes. We
Yeah.
haven't had this conversation yet.
Yeah.
I'm not on the same page. We need to discuss this.
Yep.
And it's just another point, another aspect of how important communication is in really relationships. And whenever there's two human beings involved, there needs to be fluid communication.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
which is a difficult thing to find. Not everybody can do that. Is the fact. Not
Yeah.
everybody can do that.
And then I think another thing too is in a lot of relationships, there's usually always one dominant person. So I feel like sometimes some people will go along with what the other person says just because they want to be in that relationship,
Which I can't
even though
stand.
that's not exactly what. So they're not being honest,
No.
which goes back to the
Yeah.
whole. That's the problem.
I've heard it said before that in human beings it's always one person chasing the other. Who's chasing who?
Yeah.
And I've always thought that's kind of always resonated in my mind.
Yeah, especially in a
Yeah.
relationship. But you use the word dating, and I think there's trigger words that we sort of like kind of
misdefined.
Well, yeah, definitely mystifying, but we kind of snow over sometime for our own gratification.
Yeah.
Like you say, oh, well, we're just dating. When you said that, you were like, well, we're going out and having fun and hanging out, but we're not committed.
Exclusive.
We're not exclusive.
I don't know what word to use at that, because if you use the what, so in say if I'm dating somebody that I'm having sex with, I consider that just dating. I mean, if that's in the same classification as dating, or I could just flat out say, hey, this is a friend with benefits. Am I supposed to say that when I introduce somebody? Hey, Tom, meet my new girl here, or my friend here. We're friends with benefits.
This is my new fuck buddy.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's like, we're what do you say exactly that? Because
This is my friend. This is.
I don't know. You could specify that I'm dating this. Yeah, we're seeing each other. We're dating.
But then that sounds like you're establishing exclusivity, right? Like, hey, Tom, don't look at her.
No, if
But
you said this
also-
is my girlfriend,
That's exclusive.
To me,
established.
that's
exclusivity.
That's exclusive.
You're
That's-
right, for sure.
But
That one
then
I take.
Why feel the need to introduce an individual
True.
with a title to begin with?
True.
Unless they are at that point in your life.
True. True. I guess it's up to everybody else to just watch the dynamic between those two
Titles,
people.
man,
Titles,
they're fucked
yeah,
up.
They are. They're bad
never,
news.
It's
dude.
not like I introduced Glenn. I'm like, this is my buddy Glenn. He's number one friend. Or this is friend number 2
Number one
on
friend,
the rank.
Glenn.
You don't have to have that title. It's like this is my heterosexual life partner. It's just like
I
this
am
is
cis.
just this is. Yeah, you're just like this is my boy. This is my friend. This is my homie. It's
Yep.
just I don't know. Unless you've reached that level, that shouldn't be there. That doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Too many people
No, you're
jump
right.
the gun and then they start introducing their own
Problems.
expectations, and applying it
Absolutely.
to a situation where those have not been defined.
That's an extremely valid point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Avoid titles.
But
Unless
again,
you're,
that communication,
Yeah.
and that acceptance of that, and then just oftentimes how I put it is, we're like, let's feel things out, let's see how it goes, and you take it as it comes, and then if things will happen, things will unfold the way that they're meant to.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. I dated this girl for about 4 years ago, who was hands down one of the funnest people I've ever dated, and I was going with her to meet one of her friends, and we get out of the car and we're in the parking lot of the apartment complex, and we're getting going, and she pulls and she says, "Hey, I gotta ask you something." And I'm like thinking, what's going on here? And she says, "Is it okay if I introduce you to my friend as my lover?" And I
Nice.
thought, hell yes.
Perfectly reasonable. Yeah, perfectly reasonable. But see, then it goes to the other side of the same coin. I've been in situations that were exclusive, and I've been introduced to family as not as a friend, or and it was like, okay, that puts things into perspective for me.
Yeah.
Now I know where I stand. Now I'm not the type of person to create a scene there, but in my mind, I saved that. I remembered that. I was like, okay, now I see what's going on here. So, I'll keep that in mind.
That's something you should talk about later, right? I mean, like,
Yeah,
okay,
if you wanted to,
apparently, apparently we didn't pre-establish this up
Right.
front.
Yeah,
so now
it wasn't pre-established, and she set a set of boundaries in front of you that you didn't necessarily know were going on. And I can't remember. I was watching some stupid show a while back or something, and these two people are like this guy's with this girl, and he thinks that they're dating. And somebody says, "Oh, are you guys a couple?" And she says, "We're just hanging out." And the dude's face just melted.
Oh yeah, don't do that.
See,
you
and
can do that inside, but don't do that on the outside.
Yeah, and I've been on the opposite end where I was the one that said this is my friend, and then later you're like, oh, you said just friends. Like, I don't know what to say. This person came with me. Like, what do you say? So I went with friend, and
oftentimes too, if you just introduce, again, going back to just introducing the person as their name.
Yeah.
A lot of the time you can decide how your body language shows your relationship with that person. If you're cuddling on the person or holding their hands, obviously you're together, and that doesn't necessarily mean, exclusive, but that kind of can tell your friends, hey, this person's with me. I brought this person.
I think it's really interesting that I feel that need to put a title on anybody. Like if
don't do it, man. Get away from it.
I'm gonna have to train myself now to not to actively think not to do that. Like if I introduce Glenn anywhere, if I went somewhere, this is my buddy Glenn. That's my initial reaction. My buddy, my friend Thomas. Like I don't know why I do that though. I could just say this is Thomas.
Well, friend is okay, buddy. But
well, it depends on the context. I mean, if you're like,
Glenn's like, we're just buddies.
I thought I was your bestie. What the fuck? You sent all those text messages that said BFF, man. What did that all mean?
All those emoticons, man.
What about the winky face, man?
Yeah.
That winky meant something.
That face I was just talking about in the guy, Glenn just had it.
Exactly. So okay, so hopefully you're
There's good stuff to keep in mind with group dynamics, for sure.
Big time.
And when you're bringing, friends that you're involved with around other people, groups of people,
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're dating, and again, you had mentioned the word dating. If I'm in a situation like that, I'm real careful about even saying dating.
Yeah, I just didn't know what else to say. So
I know. Well, that's the problem. Is there's really there's no title to put that. You can't just say, "Oh, it's my fuck buddy."
Yeah.
Hey, Grandma, it's my fuck buddy, Sherry.
Well, it depends on the environment.
It depends on two people involved, for sure.
Grandma might give you a high five if she's hella cool, man.
Mine would.
Yeah, and Grandma's like, does she have a grandpa?
Is he spry?
Oh my god, that brings some bad
Brutal,
images to mind.
Brutal.
Man.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but again, it's the titles thing, and like Joe was pointing out, you got to be really careful, especially when you're first dating. I used to always say this to buddies that would have bad relationships. I would always say, what my advice is when you first start dating somebody, don't call them every day. Don't give them. You're giving them a boundary. You're putting together.
Or you're setting a standard.
You're setting a standard.
Yeah,
so if you're,
I have a problem with that.
Yeah. So if you're like casually dating somebody or casually having sex with somebody or hanging out, you gotta. I feel like you have to really not being a jerk, but you have to put some boundaries there that we're not a full-time thing.
Right.
And I think a lot of times what happens is people are so happy that they've run into somebody they like, they have a good time with. All of a sudden they're texting them all the time.
Exactly my problem.
Calling them all the time, and like now you're 24/7 at the hip with this person.
Now we're basically married.
Pretty much.
So you're like, hey, you want to move in?
You skipped from 0 to
0 to 60.
0 to 60. But I think
where are you guys registered at?
I think a lot of people struggle with boundaries in relationships. I know I've talked about this before, but I mean, it's something that's really important and needs to be defined, so everybody is comfortable with the situation and how you interact with each other, and expectations for sure as well, because again, you're not expecting her to text you every day or vice versa.
Or am I?
Or are you? I don't know. Set your boundaries, man. Set your boundaries.
That's a very, very valid point, yeah.
Now, to kind of get back to the original question of can you have just casual sex without an emotional attachment? There are hormones released when you have an orgasm on both the male and female side. Those hormones develop emotional connection.
Yeah, we're predisposed to be screwed with this.
So I think, though, I'd like to say something about that. You say without emotional attachment, but I mean, so I think there's a big difference between just like, say you find somebody on Craigslist or something and you start having sex versus a friend.
I was just trying to buy a car.
A friend, yeah. Well, you never know. Or
one thing versus another,
versus a friend that you guys, actively engage in that next step of a relationship, friendship, whatever. You can still keep that a friend. You're just friends who sleep together. So it's not that you don't have any emotional attachment. It's just you keep it kind of checked. And yes, it is very difficult for two people to do that completely and authentically, but it is possible.
Maybe the complete stranger approach to that would make it easier because
you could fuck a bunch of strangers, but you also run a risk of getting VD. I mean,
Well, I mean, okay, we go back to an ethical stranger. Okay, somebody with some with a moral this mindset that is similar to your own.
Sounds
just
risky.
Driving down the street. What are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, not a sex worker. No.
Well, I'm pretty sure you can get your rocks off just down the street here
at the Asian massage, or the local crackhead down the corner.
The local crackhead.
that dude who's standing at the corner jerking off as everybody drives by.
Yeah.
I've had to drive
give
past
him $5,
that.
man.
Oh man. That's no, I don't want to think about that.
Give you a gummer.
Oh God. Nice, Glenn. You had to cross that line. There was that line. You stepped right over it.
That seems pretty casual to me.
And detached. No emotional commitment there, huh? Yeah, that's brutal. Yeah, defining the like Joe, what you were saying, defining the relationship boundaries. Yeah, that's definitely key. But I feel like if you start it, I feel like that's harder to do when you start as both friends already, because I care about my friends. It's not, maybe I'm not.
Of course, yeah.
It's not a sexual attraction at that point, but there's definitely a deeper emotion than a complete stranger, right? And then the minute you start tying in, like Glenn was saying, the sex part and sharing that experience with somebody else, and you got those, some people too, that the stuff that fires in your brain when that happens, that we accept and or manifest into an emotional attachment, maybe for some people, or under the right discipline, you could control that into something else too. You could
we could just work to actively deepen the friendship. I mean,
it could.
Communication again is key. I mean, so let me ask you a question. You never had like a friend of the opposite gender that you get drunk together one night, and before you know it, you're making out with her, and things go from there. And
when that happened, we continued. It went into,
you were dating. You were in
love.
Were
basically
they
dating.
were registered as target.
Yeah.
Well, then so you gotta some people can do it, some people can't.
But see, if you pre-establish it beforehand, like, look, okay, we're going to get drunk tonight and we're going to have sex. Like, if you could lay it out.
Well, that takes all the fun out of it.
But
right.
You're going to have to take some of that. That depends on how you define the fun, right? And what your end goal is, right? But you're going to have to.
When you got the saran wrap laying around, it's just
the lotion.
Lay it out, man.
The lotion basket.
No, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking things doing things in the moment, acting on the moment.
But then you haven't pre-established boundaries. That's where I'm saying you get in trouble, right? Because if you haven't said, look, we're going to get drunk tonight and we're going to have sex, are you okay with that? Do you also want that? If you don't do that, you don't know what the other person's intentions are or goals are, and you don't know that they've even had a chance to stop and think, wait a minute, when this happens, can I control what the emotional reactions and the stuff that's going to go off in my brain and not associate it with an emotional connection with this person, but perhaps use it to feed something else?
I don't know. I've had a lot of situations like that where that has happened, and only one has been a predetermined sort of thing where he said, this is going to happen, this is what it's going to be. But, fall into the situation is something different. But as long as you're open, communicate, So, yeah, somebody could get hurt.
So you're talking about communicating after the fact?
I mean, yeah, way to kill the moment when you're just like, well, wait, let's sign this piece of paper that says you're not going to call me tomorrow 100 times, and this is just going to stay where it is.
Like that Chappelle episode? Yeah. Yes.
It's a sticky situation, for sure. You gotta handle it carefully, tread softly, and just communicate and keep people's you realize that you're dealing with a human being and you don't want to hurt a friend.
So going back to what you were talking about, Glenn, because I wanted to take another spin off of that. And I don't want to keep saying emotional reaction, but the reaction that happens in the brain during orgasm and during the whole act, right? I've always been curious if that can be, and I know it can, but can it be done with the purpose of avoiding an emotional attachment with your partner? And what I'm playing off of here is that many people use orgasms and sex, orgasm with somebody else or without, whatever, as a method to boost brain creativity, boost problem solving. I mean, it does all kinds of crazy stuff for us.
It's a massive endorphin dump,
It's insane. And if you could practice using that situation,
I think it's called getting the lead out. By
getting
the way,
the lead. I mean, to a deeper degree, to a more useful. Like some people say, they can solve problems. They can think better when they're high. So I knew people in school when I was studying electrical engineering. These guys are, one of my buddies in particular. That guy he had to be high for everything. He couldn't do anything high. He couldn't go to class high. Couldn't take a quiz. Nothing. He had to be stoned for everything. He got better grades than I did. He could stay focused like that. But so I'm thinking, like, what if there are people who have gone into the situation, learned and practiced and self-taught that they use their orgasms for a creative outlet, or I'm a writer. I got writer's block. I'm gonna go have sex real quick, and at that point, hopefully, I can, like, sleeping on it, so to speak.
Sounds a lot like sex magic.
Sex man.
It's a thing.
It's
Look
a-
it up.
Okay. Nice. Okay. This I have not heard of. Explain.
Seriously?
No, I've never heard
Oh,
of.
dude.
Have you guys heard of
Inquiring minds want to know.
this? Yes.
Okay,
Fill me
well,
on sex magic.
I was just going to say it all sounds like masturbation to me.
Well,
No, but see, I don't. Okay, but before you go into that, I want to rule out masturbation because this is casual sex. It's got to be two people. It's got to be or two or more people. That I wanted this topic to focus more on that as opposed to just obtaining orgasm because that opens up a whole nother door of
Absolutely.
what I'm thinking. Can you realign or refocus the endorphin dump to instead of going into creating and solidifying an emotional connection with this person you're with, but instead separating yourself from that situation entirely, almost like ignoring it and thinking, I now know what to write about, or I now.
That's essentially the concept behind that. You're generating a lot of energy. There's a lot going on there.
Crazy stuff
you're
going in your brain.
actively focusing on something you want to occur or a change you want to make or whatnot.
What is this? The Secret?
Essentially, but
that stupid documentary, dude. Wow.
Oh,
I haven't
dude.
thought of that in years.
hey, man, there's some legit shit there.
there is, but it was just funny how much people built it up. Though I'm not talking it down.
Oh,
it was
no,
just, it was like built
I
up
think
like
the
it was,
only legit part about it is defining your goals and getting up your ass off the couch and
yes.
getting them.
Yeah,
I think-
That's important. Some people need to hear that with some mystical connotation
yeah,
to it, right?
some people need a bigger kick in the ass than others, I guess. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? You focus on what you want and you keep thinking about it and you make it happen.
Wow, the secret of life.
The secret
of life.
I
Right.
am astounded.
is sex magic.
Blown away. But essentially, it's the same gist.
All right.
I like it. I just never heard a name
it's
for it.
Focusing your energy, man.
Yeah.
Align your chi.
I like.
Yep.
Yeah, is that what they're calling it these days?
Well,
Hey,
I mean,
hey baby, come over here. Let me align my chi in you.
depending upon your, different philosophies. It's,
Yeah, put that on your
it's-
Tinder profile.
Just trying to align my chi.
Can you help?
Oh,
Looking for a little sex magic.
Yes.
that is classy. I like that. I may actually put that on there. Nothing else seems to be working.
Ben, a.k.a. Sex Magic Master. Be like one of those
Specialty chi alignments.
Get you flowing right.
Oh man,
You're
Latin
going to have to have some
lover, huh?
tools for that, I think.
Dude.
Some handheld
Man.
devices or something.
You'll have to open up your profile on one of these podcasts. We'll help you.
Oh jeez.
We'll help you make changes to it.
Yeah. Let listeners make alterations to it, huh?
We'll get results.
Yes, we will.
We got your back, man.
And if we can't, we'll just distract her. While Thomas wraps her up and throws her in his pit. Gosh.
In the plastic. But and when it comes to casual sex, I think one of the problems that men and women have is that it's this old adage that women use sex to get love and men use love to get sex.
Yeah.
And I think that there's almost no way, obviously there's no way to know what somebody else is thinking.
Yeah. And
But,
I believe that also can work in reverse too, but yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
But I
Go
think a
on
lot
with
of times we get in this mode where we're like, if we're dating or we're single or something, you never know what somebody else is thinking. And it's even if you ask to
Sucks.
communicate or you really push the issue of communicating, the other person can always be lying.
Yeah, that's what I kept trying to go off of when Joe was
Yeah.
saying, establish this up front, establish boundaries. I've dated people who are just incapable of talking about their emotions. They just don't know. They
Oh,
have them.
absolutely.
They know what they're thinking. I believe that in some cases they could process them mentally. They just couldn't figure out how to put it into words and get it out.
So, but either way, the cake is cut in that situation.
Yeah.
That's not going to work out for you. You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Yeah. And
So-
that's ultimately what ended up happening, I think.
Yeah.
The cake is a lie.
The cake is a lie.
Yeah, but I think too, and I've been in situations too where I was dating someone sort of in a casual situation where, again, I was talking about those boundaries where you're not talking to somebody all the time. You have to put some sort of space in between. If you're casual, you're not on the phone every day. You're not
That's right.
texting every
That's
day.
casual.
Yeah, that's casual. Like we're casual friends. We don't talk to each other every single day. But I think when it comes to mixing the sexes, that's a really tough. That's a tough line to cross, and I don't know if there's any way to really make that successful. I have had relationships where we were just casually dating. This girl I dated casually for probably a year.
Casually
one time.
dating or casually dating with sex?
Well, casually dating with
Okay,
sex.
okay.
And we were both seeing other people. We were both okay with it. Sometimes I wouldn't talk to her for a month or so. And I was like, if it's over, it's over. I didn't have that much emotional attachment to the relationship to be like, oh, I haven't heard from you in a week. But I think that's hard. I feel like somebody always gives in at that point. And then there's like, well, that's obviously emotional attachment. So it's no longer casual.
Yeah. Going off what you were saying there about, basically setting space between communication and kind of like, keeping this more as more like you would a friend. I've even tried approaching the whole friends with benefits thing under the pretense of like we're not going to do intimate things together while we're having sex or whatever, and we're going to try to keep the space thing too, right? So for example, we're not going to like make out. But dude, I don't really, or we're not going to do.
Sounds like Pretty Woman. We don't kiss.
Something. I mean, yeah, exactly, stuff like that, right?
No holding hands.
How does that work exactly?
It doesn't. It doesn't end up working because I don't enjoy sex without kissing. Like it's just like this is really bizarre.
It's part of the sexual experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what am I supposed to do?
You're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong.
But
that may be, but for me, it's part of the connection that I really, really enjoy, and it's like.
So I think maybe instead you should have said we won't do intimate things like go to dinner with my family, or I won't,
Well, I was trying to establish non-intimate physical things. Like some things push intimacy more.
I don't know, man.
I
Sex
don't know if
is
that's
about
ever
as
gonna
intimate
work.
as it gets.
Yeah.
True, but I mean,
P in the V equals intimacy.
Yeah, but we're not just talking about P and V here, though. It's like that intimacy is like, oh man, I forgot what I was going to say now. The P and the V just
It just wrecked you, didn't it?
just wrecked my mind, dude. Because I started thinking, well, because we want to include homosexual couples in the same precinct because they can be in the same exact situation, right? I mean, and it's not,
anybody in a relationship.
yeah,
can be in
any
that
two partners. So you put the P and the V could be P and the A. I mean.
Yeah, whatever.
Could be the V and the V.
Let's not get into the dynamics, right?
The physical aspect is not what we're focusing on here.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know. I find it really hard to. I don't know. Every situation I've been in dating, I've always felt like, and there was a time in my life where I was like, I do not want to have a girlfriend right now. I've got other things going on. I want to date. I want to go out. I want to have fun or whatever. But you were talking about those intimate restraints or barriers. That just seems really strange to me because I'm like, what is that? Do you guys both agree that you only have intercourse but you don't? What? I don't know.
Okay, so there have been two situations that with a
That's
girl.
weirder than the magic sex to me.
No. There have been two situations that come to mind right now while I'm sitting here thinking about this, and where it was the same thing, actually, and it was kind of odd. I thought it was kind of odd, but then I kind of got it when I started thinking about it. Two people in particular had told me, don't touch my face when you kiss me, because that meant...
You mean like with your hand?
Like, hold her face when you're like, hold her
yeah.
cheek or whatever, or like hold the back of her neck when you're kissing her.
Yeah,
because
I've heard that before too.
Yeah,
I don't know
those are
anything
the
about
types of things or triggers that make
Okay.
things more intimate, more deeper. They knew that already. So they knew that about themselves. So they thought, okay, if I'm going to go into this, and I right off the bat, I appreciated, like, wow, you thought far enough that you even like identified some triggers of things that we should or shouldn't do. Now, unfortunately, that's something I enjoy doing too. So it's like at some
that cuts
point,
out choking her.
Thomas, man. Tom gets down, dude.
Some barbed wire handcuffs and
Damn, dude.
Barbed wire handcuffs.
Tourniquets.
well, I thought fuzzy handcuffs, and I thought, you know what? He's just not into the fuzzy
going
thing.
for the pain,
I think
man.
he's
I like comfort.
Yeah, he doesn't mind putting fuzz around his
but
saran
that's,
wrap.
But that's what. Little jelly or hand wrap, or we're good to go.
Vaseline.
Vaseline. But that was what the not. And I've had girls say that before too. It's been years since I've heard that before. But like, don't touch my face or
Yeah.
don't like. I'm like, wow, that's so weird. That
Don't
triggers
touch
a
my
lot of others. That triggers a lot of other. I don't know. I think I don't even know where to go with that because
That's
I don't
weird
really.
and kind of creepy.
It is kind of weird and kind of creepy, but I know it's triggers to emotional attachments for
Yeah.
certain things as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you avoid those types of intimacy triggers, maybe it would help you stay separate. Okay, so...
I guess I just don't understand how that's more intimate than
no,
being
not-
inside somebody. I
Not
don't get
more,
it.
not more intimate, but triggers emotional
Connection.
pleasure, emotional pleasure that you would then associate with that person. Oh, you touched me like so
Well,
soft. Like,
there
and you're
are behaviors. There was an example that I heard that kind of stuck with me about a child that got hurt in the park. Dog runs up and starts licking her face. Right?
Yeah.
Later in life, a boy she met licks her on the cheek, and it triggers that memory
true.
of that comfort, and it our minds
That's
jump.
association.
Yeah,
That's-
exactly.
Or like hair petting, like whatever, just like relaxing or whatever.
Right. So if there's close tactile behavior that goes on in a family setting that you've associated with either watching a behavior of your parents or
Yeah.
some other
Definitely.
key.
How you learned affectionate displays and how
Right.
Yes.
So you can, if you recognize that those are things that trigger those behaviors in yourself or those reactions, you can ask to avoid them if that's a situation.
That's very possible. The other thing I was thinking of while you started talking is, what about massage therapy? I mean, that teaches us about physical touch and connections between two people. Maybe there's a whole bunch of crap that's involved in that with the face that, or other parts of the body that would increase emotional connection.
So
Foot rubs, man.
that's one thing that, as having practiced massage therapy,
Yeah. That's why I was like, oh, Glenn, you can talk about this. Perfect.
that's a line that we have to draw. And it is a professional approach to the situation. And a lot of that is a good massage therapist will see a body as a body. Mm-hmm. It's not a person while they're on the table. Mm-hmm. It's a client. It's a professional. It's disassociated with
Any emotion.
Predisposed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, somebody that on the street, I'd be like, damn. If they're coming into my office, I don't even react to them. It's a total separation of mind space and presence. And
All business.
even though the situation and the setting can be very confusing. There's dim lighting. Mm-hmm. There could be a candle, running water. It's relaxing.
Barry Manilow in the background.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Your client's naked, half naked. Or
I know.
completely
in a
naked.
lot of cases, they're completely naked.
Yeah.
So it's there's subtlety in presentation and how you act as a therapist, to make a comfortable environment for your client and to not be a total creep. Because there are a
it's
lot
easy
of
to be. I could see where it would be easy to be that.
if you have a therapist that's a crappy therapist and is checking out their client.
Oh, boy.
I mean, and there really is a difference. It's why those worlds clash strangely, and you do have a lot of the situations where you have human trafficking issues.
Yeah.
And they bring
I've heard of
in girls to work as therapists.
Yeah.
Who are
Provide happy
perform
endings.
sexual favors. That's and it slanders the entire massage therapy field because you have people that use that as a easy avenue.
There's quite a few of those in Citrus Heights.
Yes,
I'm not trying to be funny. There really are.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
The massage therapy things with the black curtain and the neon lights and
Anytime I see neon lights, I'm kind of
no.
there's got to be sex
Wait,
involved.
that's not
with
a
those
strip
neon
club?
lights. Absolutely, right? Neon lights, naked bodies, oils. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
you know what?
there's a hard call between the
That's
professionalism. Of
That's something I didn't think about. So obviously, casual sex can definitely occur with people see sex workers. I understand your one side is paying for it, but that's an emotionally detached, casual sex. If the definition of casual sex, if there is any. Now, I have seen, read, heard stories, whatever. About guys mostly who fall in love with their sex worker or whatever, and then they keep going back and dumping all their money into it. But those situations aside, same thing with strippers too, right?
Dominatrixes.
Yeah, there's another one too.
I have a
because-
friend who's a dominatrix
Yeah.
in Chicago, and she has several guys who are absolutely in love with her.
And so that's a whole other topic too, because at
That's
what
dangerous.
level? Yeah, what level of professionalism do you say? I'm sorry, there's too much involvement here. I can't service you anymore because that's not safe for the person. And at some
Absolutely
point,
not.
that's really not safe for her in that situation. But anyway, but those are people who are totally capable of having casual sex, even repeatedly with the same person, and have zero, I believe, to some degree, have zero attachment to their clients. But that's interesting that that involves a professional standpoint in order to do that. Whereas I wonder if those people, assuming they have normal relationships with, real relationships that are not work related. I wonder if that extends into, or if they can extend it or can't extend it into their real personal relationships, not in the professional world. Are they able to shut off their emotion, when they meet somebody for real and not a worker, not a client? I don't know. I don't know anybody who does that, but that's something interesting to think about. Is like, or are they just so practiced at being removed from the situation that they are incapable of feeling anything past casualness anyway, with the act of sex, and maybe they, I don't know. I don't know anybody who asked for that one. So
right.
It's kind of
that's one thing. When you were going through the massage therapy stuff, that was something I wanted to ask you a long time ago. I totally forgot about it. Did they ever during your training approach that subject?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Really?
what kind of conversation was that really? Because I agree, it's a total professional thing, and I have massages done because I have all kinds of weird injuries and stuff like that. And it's when I go to I go to a chiropractor or a massage therapist, I'm there for a reason. I'm trying to fix something.
Yeah.
So it's it's a very professional thing. But I'm on the other end.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a very, very touchy subject. I mean, which in
No pun intended.
Pun intended.
in school, we cover it extensively, and a lot of that is setting and presence and a rapport with your client, and
because
there's especially as a male in the massage
Absolutely.
field,
that's got to be real tough.
you have
man.
to be so careful with
Yeah.
what you do.
Yep.
How you drape the sheets, where you tuck, because you move to expose a leg,
Yeah.
and like,
You see everything real quick.
well, you tuck it in a way so that you're not exposing the groin, but the buttocks, totally, the glute.
Yeah.
I've had my elbow like
elbow
6 inches
deep.
deep in,
In gluteus maximus.
Totally.
Huh? Glorious
Oh.
gluteus maximus.
got to get down to that piriformis, man. That
Yeah.
muscle's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. That
But
would be
literally.
real, that'd be-
Literally. And
That'd be
you know
real
what?
tough as a guy, dude. Especially if the client's like really pretty. You're like, oh my gosh, dude.
Well, but again, it's professionalism.
Yeah.
You're not touching breast
Yeah.
tissue. You're not touching in between the thigh. You're moving the sheet.
Got your limits.
There are ways to approach it that are safe, and to create a safe feeling for your client is your goal. You're trying to make them comfortable. You want them to relax. You're trying to help somebody. You're not sure. At least from my perspective.
Yeah.
And if you have a good therapist, that'll be their goal too.
Yeah. So note to self: do not get into massage therapy to pick up chicks.
You would be the creeper's creeper.
Oh, man, dude. All right, everyone. We're about out of time, and on that note, we're going to call it an episode. Thank you for listening. Show notes and other info can be found at our website, greatdistraction.com. The Great Distraction is listed in iTunes, and we greatly appreciate it when our listeners take the time to look us up and leave us a 5-star rating and review. That helps our show grow and motivates us to continue producing content. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can do so using the email address, greatdistractionpodcast@gmail.com, or via our website. We're always interested in hearing any thoughts, comments, or questions from our listeners. Keeping up on the latest from us can be done in several different ways. You can add us to your favorite RSS feed tracker. The link is available on our website or in iTunes. Or you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Great Distraction, one word, no space. As always, thank you for listening, and thank you for all the support.